March 3, 1952, 2:17 a.m. Tommy Hooks Mancini stood on Furman Street watching his brand-new Cadillac Eldorado burn. The flames were so hot they melted the chrome, so bright they lit up the entire Brooklyn waterfront, 8,000 worth of car turning into ash and twisted metal. But Tommy wasn't thinking about the Cadillac. He was thinking about the envelope Albert Anastasia had handed him 6 hours earlier at the Ravenite Social Club. Inside that envelope was a simple message, 3 words, written in Anastasia's own handwriting. "You miscounted, Tommy." That's when Tommy Hooks knew he was a dead man. See, Tommy wasn't just any longshoreman. He was a dock boss at Pier 7 in Red Hook, one of the busiest piers in Brooklyn. And for the past 8 months, he'd been doing something incredibly stupid. He'd been skimming money from the International Longshoremen's Association, which meant he'd been skimming money from Albert Anastasia, the Lord High Executioner of Murder Incorporated, the man who'd personally killed over 30 people, the man who ran the Brooklyn waterfront like his personal kingdom. Tommy had taken 30,000 not all at once, a few hundred here, 1,000 there, small amounts from the weekly take, money that he thought nobody would notice, money he used to buy that Cadillac, to take his girlfriend to Manhattan steakhouses, to play the big shot at the Copa. But Albert Anastasia noticed everything, every missing dollar, every inflated expense report, every padded payroll sheet. And when Anastasia noticed something, he didn't just get angry, he got surgical. What happened over the next 18 hours wasn't just about 30,000. It was about sending a message to every dock worker, every union boss, every wannabe tough guy on the Brooklyn waterfront. The message was simple. You can't steal from Albert Anastasia and live to spend it. To understand what happened that night, you need to understand the Brooklyn waterfront in 1952. This wasn't just about loading ships. It was about power, money, and control. Every piece of cargo that moved through Brooklyn docks had to be approved. Every longshoreman who worked had to kick back part of his pay. Every shipping company that wanted their goods handled quickly had to pay extra. It was a system, and Albert Anastasia sat at the top of that system like a spider in the center of a web. Tommy Hooks had been part of that system for 12 years. He started as a regular longshoreman in 1940, working the docks, loading crates, keeping his mouth shut. He was good at his job, reliable, and more importantly, he knew when to look the other way. When contraband came through, Tommy didn't see it. When bodies occasionally showed up in the harbor, Tommy didn't ask questions. That loyalty got him promoted. By 1948, he was a hiring boss at Pier 7, which meant he controlled who worked and who didn't. That was real power on the docks. But sometime in mid-1951, Tommy started to get greedy. His wife had left him for a sanitation worker. His daughter wouldn't talk to him. He was 43 years old and had nothing to show for 2 decades of breaking his back on the waterfront except a 1-bedroom apartment in Gowanus and arthritis in both knees. Then he met Diane, a 26-year-old hostess at a restaurant in Bay Ridge. Diane liked nice things, expensive dinners, jewelry, weekends in Atlantic City. Tommy wanted to give her those things. He wanted to feel important, successful, like he was more than just another dock rat taking orders. So Tommy started skimming. He'd inflate the crew size on payroll reports and pocket the difference. He'd charge shipping companies for expediting fees and only report half to Anastasia's collectors. He'd skim a percentage off the weekly union dues before passing them up the chain. Small amounts at first, $200 or $300 a week, but over 8 months it added up. 30,000 in total, enough for that Cadillac, enough to make Diane smile, enough to make Tommy Hooks feel like somebody. What Tommy didn't know was that Albert Anastasia had someone watching him the entire time. February 28, 1952, 5 days before the fire. Albert Anastasia was having breakfast at his home in Fort Lee, New Jersey, when his accountant, a nervous little man named Sal Profaci, brought him the ledgers. "We got a problem at Pier 7, Sal said, spreading papers across the dining room table. "The numbers don't match. Income's down, but cargo volume's the same. Someone's skimming." Anastasia didn't get angry. He never got angry. He got quiet, which was worse. He studied the ledgers for 20 minutes, his eggs getting cold, his coffee untouched. Then he said 4 words. "Find out who." Quietly. It took Sal 3 days. He cross-referenced payroll records, compared shipping manifests, tracked cash flow. Every discrepancy pointed to the same person, Tommy Hooks. Sal brought the evidence to Anastasia on March 2nd. It's Tommy Mancini. He's been taking about 30 years over 8 months, mostly payroll padding and unreported expediting fees. Anastasia looked at the papers, then at Sal. Tommy Hooks? He's been with us for 12 years. Sal nodded. Makes it worse. He knows better. Anastasia was quiet for a long moment. Then he picked up the phone and made a call. Bring Tommy to the Ravenite tonight, 8 o'clock. Tell him it's about a promotion. That night, Tommy Hooks walked into the Ravenite Social Club, thinking he was about to move up in the organization. He'd been working hard. The pier was running smooth. Maybe Anastasia wanted to give him more responsibility. Tommy wore his best suit. He brought a bottle of expensive scotch as a gift. He was smiling when he walked in. Anastasia was sitting at a corner table, alone. That should have been Tommy's first warning. When Anastasia met with people privately, without his usual crew around, it meant something serious. Sit down, Tommy, Anastasia said. His voice was calm, almost friendly. Tommy sat, still smiling, still thinking this was good news. Anastasia slid an envelope across the table. Open it. Inside was a single piece of paper with 3 words. You miscounted, Tommy. Tommy's smile disappeared. His hands started shaking. Mr. Anastasia, don't insult me, Anastasia interrupted. His voice was still calm. We both know what you did. 30,000 over 8 months. You think I don't count every dollar that comes through my docks? Tommy's mind raced. He could deny it, but the evidence was clearly there. He could apologize, beg for mercy. He could try to explain about Diane, about wanting to feel like somebody. But looking at Anastasia's eyes, Tommy knew none of that mattered. What happens now? Tommy asked quietly. Anastasia leaned back in his chair. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to go home tonight. You're going to sleep in your bed. Tomorrow, you're going to see something that reminds you who runs these docks. And then, if you're smart, you're going to leave Brooklyn and never come back. Tommy didn't sleep that night. He sat in his apartment, curtains drawn, lights off, waiting. He knew how this worked. He'd seen it happen to other guys who crossed Anastasia. They disappeared. They ended up in the harbor. They got shot walking to their cars. But Anastasia had said something different. Tomorrow you're going to see something. See what? At 2 a.m., Tommy heard sirens. He looked out his window and saw the orange glow coming from Furman Street, 3 blocks away. He knew immediately what it was. He ran outside in his undershirt and pants, no shoes, and found his Cadillac engulfed in flames. Fire trucks were already there, but they weren't doing much, just letting it burn, keeping the fire from spreading to nearby buildings. A crowd had gathered, dock workers, late-night dock workers, neighborhood guys. Everyone knew whose car it was. Everyone knew what it meant. Tommy stood there watching 8,000 burn, but he wasn't thinking about the money. He was thinking about the message. Anastasia could have killed him. That would have been easier, cleaner. 1 bullet, 1 body in the harbor, problem solved. But Anastasia didn't want Tommy dead. He wanted Tommy humiliated. He wanted every person on that waterfront to see Tommy Hooks's fancy Cadillac, the car he bought with stolen money, reduced to a burning shell. He wanted them to know what happens when you steal from Albert Anastasia. The fire chief came over. You Tommy Mancini? Tommy nodded. You know how this started? Tommy knew exactly how it started, but he shook his head. The fire chief looked at him like he was stupid. Accelerant, gasoline, somebody torched it on purpose. You want to file a police report? Tommy almost laughed. File a police report? Yeah, officer. I stole 30,000 from the mob and they burned my car as a warning. That'll go great. No report, Tommy said. Insurance will handle it. The fire chief shrugged and walked away. Tommy stood there until sunrise, watching the firefighters douse the smoking wreckage. By 6 a.m., the morning dock workers were arriving for their shifts. Every single one of them walked past that burned-out Cadillac. Every single one of them looked at Tommy, and every single one of them understood the message. At 7 a.m., Tommy went back to his apartment, packed a suitcase, and left Brooklyn. He took a bus to Philadelphia, then another bus to Pittsburgh. He found work in a steel mill under a different name. He never saw Diane again. He never contacted his daughter. He never returned to New York. The burned Cadillac sat on Furman Street for 3 days before the city towed it away. But the message lasted much longer. For the next decade, whenever a dock worker thought about skimming money, whenever a union boss considered padding the books, they remembered Tommy Hooks's Cadillac burning on Furman Street at 2 a.m. They remembered that Albert Anastasia didn't just punish thieves, he humiliated them, he made examples of them, and he made sure everyone was watching when he did it. Albert Anastasia ran the Brooklyn waterfront until 1957, when he was killed in a barbershop in Manhattan. But his legend on those docks lasted generations, and part of that legend was the night he burned a $8,000 Cadillac to collect on a $30,000 debt, not because he needed the money, but because he needed everyone to know, you don't steal from the Lord High Executioner, not even pocket change, not ever.